Well, here's where we're at. Now that little plasma cutter, you got to sit there and hold it and hold it and hold it, and then once it builds up enough heat to start cutting, like a cutting torch, it'll cut that. And that's probably dang near 1/4 inch. What I'm going to do is cut that in half, or cut that lip off, butt them up to each other, and weld it and make it wide enough for this. This will be our plate. Let me take you down here and show you what we got going on. Now with this plate, that's going to be our motor mount for the passenger side. And then the driver's side, pretty much the same way. I got to get some tips for the plasma cutter. After I figured out how it cuts thicker stuff, you got to... I tried to turn the air pressure up, kept blowing the arc out. But here's what I got going on. This right here. Now this is kind of to the inside. Okay. I don't know, it looks blurry. This is more to the inside, so I'm going to make some shims that I'll weld to this plate once we stick it up here. Now this plate, when I weld it in, it may be that same size. I mean, it'll be bigger than what I need, and then once we get that motor mount tacked to the outside, we can finesse it, trim it up, weld it out solid. Now with the tape measure, I put it up there from that bell housing flange out with the adapter. Now it's all the way down, it ain't bolted up, none of that. It's pretty much dead nuts of where that was at. Maybe a 1/4 inch difference. I don't know. We'll try to put it right back where it was at. This one, on the other hand, it's going to be back either 1 inch or 1/2 inch. So as long as this kind of stays close, I mean, that's great. But to get that in there, I kind of got it leaning to one side. We're working on one side at a time. To get that in there, we'll have to take them tabs off of that dipstick tube and move those wires out of the way. That inside piece will have a loop cut around for the dipstick tube, and we'll put it in behind this AC compressor. And then that line obviously will be unbolted, moved up out of the way, whatever we got to do to make room. Now I may have to take the motor mount off, or jack the motor up to hold the motor to pull that out and pull that motor mount out. Yeah, now if that's what I gotta do, that's what we're gonna do. The way that oil pan looks, it looks like it'll clear that transmission, or that front rear end. That front rear end right there. Because it looks like it's actually smaller than that transmit, or the oil pan on that motor. So we should be good. I'm fingers crossed. You know, we still got a couple days. We get this motor mount made. It'll probably take a day or two to make this mount, and then another day or two to get that other one. We have to wait on some tips. So I gotta get some tips and a 3/8 drill bit and tap. You know, I'm gonna put a 3/8 hole in that one, and that other one is gonna be the same size as that AC compressor, but with all that bolted together. You know, it's got 2 bolts in the front of it, 1 bolt going through the motor mount in the back, and then we'll probably upsize the holes. It's got like a ground box on one hole, and the other hole's just smaller, and then that one on the bottom is about a 3/8 or so. It's the same size, it's almost a 3/8 shank. That's our game plan. I'm coming back out here and fiddle with a little bit. It had to cool down for me. But this motor mount right here, it'll almost go on there, on that side. So, you know, the way it's made, look how it's made. One side's deeper, and the top side's, the bottom's deep and the top side's short. So I imagine it ain't gonna take much to cut that off and figure out some kind of way to, you could probably almost just cut it in the middle and burn it off of that bracket and make it fit the holes. But I was just going to take that bracket and weld it to our plate with our bolts in it. That's kind of the game plan. Get the motor to where it looks decent in there, You know, you really need to check the pinion angle on the drive line, because usually the motor's down and the transmission's down a little bit, and then the pinion angle to the rear end is going to be down. So when it comes under torque, when it's under torque, it's at 0. In theory, that's the way they do it, to set up a rear end on any, you know, hard torque. That's not no hard torque. That's going to be Grandpa's truck. I'm Grandpa on this truck. You know, you can daydream all you want. Let's get with reality. We're hoping that we can get this in here and make it work. And I was thinking about taking the that transmission wiring harness, if I could figure it out, to where hopefully that transmission would shift this motor. You got to look at you just got to hook the tack wire and stuff to that motor up to that transmission. Shouldn't be that big a deal. I'm going to ask a guy if he would tell me. He maybe not. You know. So we'll see. That's what we got going on. I'll probably be 3-4 days getting this done. The plasma cutter keeps kicking off in order to get enough heat to cut it. Now I could hook it up 220. That's really what I need to do. I see if you hook it up 220, it'll burn that like butter. I'd almost put money on it. But we'll have to get a drill bit and a tap and do 3 holes on that. That bracket's going to be complicated, but we need it up as close to the AC compressor. But when I throw the tape measure in there, eyeball to the center of what that is, it should be back. That's good. We want it to be back. It can go back an inch. That's plenty. We can do an inch right there. And then all we got to do is, once we get that plate where we can stick that motor mount up to it and tack weld it up, pick the motor up enough to unbolt them mounts and come out here and weld them up solid, stick them back in, hook up fuel lines and heater hoses, and pull some wiring harness out and stuff another wiring harness in beside them plugs. I might be able to just make it work with what we got. I might have to burn 2 holes out below that steering column, but we'll see. Whatever it takes. And then, you know, I'm thinking that power steering might be close to hitting on that cab. You know, we got to be careful. We want all of our brake lines and all of our interior stuff to be pretty much the same, with the added wiring harness, which is not a big deal. You know, some extra wires run the motor ain't a big deal. But wish me luck. That's what I kind of got going on. I just made a template here, and we're just going to kind of roll with it. It's pretty close. Eyeballs. You know, it's going to have some shims in the top to just kind of make that plate. Instead of putting a crook in it and getting it flat against the block, we'll just put some washers to this side of it, and that way it'll just kind of hold it flat, and we'll cut that bracket however we got to cut it and weld it all together and get it tacked in, and we can do that pretty decent. And then we just get that exhaust. I was almost even thinking about putting exhaust outside the fender. Hot rod style. I can't stand no loud nothing. You have a headache before I make it down. But that's what we're going to do with it. And then on these lines, the return line ain't nothing. It's this line. To make this line to where it would be something like that, you know, you might be able to use a quick connect. Was cut that off here and then stab it onto the other one. You know, it's got a little bit of a crook in it, so you'd have to cut it on the flat part and pray you get it on there square enough to where you can get one of those on there. But that's high pressure. I don't know. I was asking a guy. They sell kits to put those LS. You know, everything's LS. They go from just a regular steering box to LS. Might be able to find an LS swap and, you know, get that, and it's got a universal line you can just screw 2 together. But the way that's made on this, it's just got a plate that holds it in the bolt in the center, and it kind of pulls it in. You know, so we'll see. I think the fuel lines won't be no big deal, but the power steering's got to be right to do that. I think I got a truck up the road that's got a manual style steering box, if nothing else. But I don't want to do that. I want power steering. It's got a power steering pump on it. So we should be able to get it.